we have scaled the company to about 200 people, peak $20 million annual revenue.
I remember we were like close to running out of money, which happened so many times throughout the history. Then we had like this sprint, and our goal was to get like 5 clients within 3 weeks, and we did that.
Do you think it was the smartest idea to install a jacuzzi at our terrace?
When the police came to one of the parties, one of the girls was like, "Oh, the strippers are here." When it comes to the overall success, like, look, it was a collection of effort, drive, consistency, grit. Like, I remember skipping 2 nights a week on average.
When the pandemic hit, I lost half of the revenue from basically 1 week to another.
What made you to actually want to purchase first the majority of the company and then subsequently the entire company?
Welcome to the Lubo Smith podcast. Today, I have an honor to welcome my co-founder from STRV, David Semerad. David and I share a 13-year-long journey together of building and growing the company. And we just wrapped it up with a big milestone where I acquired the 100% stake in the business from all 3 of my co-founders. And I wanted to dive into all the intricacies and details of our journey together. And that's why I was so much looking forward to having this conversation with David. And I would love to now share it with you. So without further ado, let's get to the discussion with my co-founder from STRV, David Semerad. Well, David, you are one of the craziest people that I know, and that's why I wanted to wait for a special moment to invite you to my podcast. And I'm very excited to dive into the 13 years of us building a business together. It's a nice full chapter, and I am thrilled that we'll be able to cover it together.
Let's go. Thank you so much for inviting me here. Those 13 years were freaking epic, amazing, and I can't wait to dive a little deeper.
All right, let's go. I wanted to call this episode as something like, the things about STRV that were never really published, the inside out a look into how we have gone through the past 13 years together, and how we closed the chapter very recently. So I wanted to kick things off with your point of view, where you were when things actually started, right? I was joining the company about 2012, and I know that a lot of things were fluid, but I would love to hear what was going on through your head at the time.
When you mean when you joined at that moment?
Yeah. Like what did you have in mind as like the direction, the vision, what you wanted to achieve? What was important for you at that time? Because I think like a lot of things evolved over time, and I think I would like to dive into them. But just to set the baseline, I would love to get a sense of what was going on in your head at that time.
Well, before you joined, there was basically a bunch of students in high school. I think I was in college at that time, but most of the people were still high schoolers. And I remember there was one time before that when I was like, when I sit down with Martin, he was when he started, he was like 13. So I don't know, at the moment when we had this conversation, maybe he was like 17, and I was like, "Hey, it's getting pretty like serious. Maybe like it seems like we're gonna turn this into a company. Like, are you down for it?" And he's like, "Yep, let's go." So that was like the only conversation we had, and then, like let's say when you joined, maybe there was like 15 students, 20 students, like kind of working part-time-ish on it. And the Czech market wasn't really that great for us. So I definitely realized that the potential is in the US market. And I think when you joined, I was in the US, right? Like I was hiring you remotely.
Yeah, was the first month of you being in the US.
Yeah, so I just realized that I always say that if you put the same effort in the Czech market as you would put elsewhere, like in the US market, like, after 3 years in the Czech market or 5 years in the Czech market, you can like lease a car. And that's like, whoa, I made it. That's kind of the sign of success. Whereas the same return on effort, which is a metric that I like to use, is exponentially higher when you do it in a market that doesn't really have limitations and that have much more potential just because of the size of the market, like the United States.
Did you have any goals in mind at that time? Something that you wanted to achieve or something that was basically driving you to make the leap to the US?
As I said, like, what was easy for me was we were not doing that great in the Czech market. So it's like, it would be we would probably like latching onto that much more if there was more success, but because it wasn't that great. Well, also I did like 1 year study exchange program when I was 16. So I knew that I knew the culture of the United States, and being in tech and the idea of being able to go to Silicon Valley and be there was like really exciting. So I signed up for this Czech Accelerator program, which is a governmental program run by Czech Invest. And we've been selected out of like, I don't know, it wasn't that popular at the moment. There was like six companies, and maybe 2 of them like didn't even have a company. So it wasn't that hard to get in there at that time because not many people knew about it. And we got in. The first year was rough. Like when you were joining, I remember we didn't sell anything. We had this dating app, which was kind of like before Tinder at that moment. And I wanted to focus on that, but also needed to make sure that someone takes care of the client business. And that's where you come in, and you started as a project manager. And when you joined, like when Pavel told me about you, I was like, yeah, sure. I'll have a call with him. And when you joined, like I very, very quickly realized your potential, and I knew that you are going to be a core part of the company. I didn't know that you will eventually own the entire company when I was starting you with a little piece of equity, but I definitely saw the potential right away.
And maybe that's a nice segue to talk a little bit about how do you actually select your co-founding team? Because I feel like the match between the 4 of us, you mentioned also Martin and Pavel, who played a very, very important role in that story as well. I feel like there was probably never a plan to like so perfectly match the skill sets that are, I think, complementing each other, but it somehow nicely fit together from my perspective, at least.
Yeah, it's like the Ninja Turtles, aren't they also 4? And like one of them has the nunchucks, one of them has like the sword. So that's kind of like what we were, because, Pavel is an extremely talented designer. He's insanely talented when it comes to creativity, insanely. Martin, I benchmarked Martin as a CTO with like the top CTOs and tech people from, the top US companies, top Silicon Valley companies. And he is one of the absolute best, which is insane considering the fact that I found him in high school, right? Like I just basically asked like, hey, who is the best kid in your IT class? I asked my teacher, and he said, oh yeah, just talk to this guy. And and then you come in, out of not really a big town in the Czech Republic, and the fact that the 4 of us, like, and I come from a really small village as well, so the fact that the 4 of us have such a unique skills, and the fact that we all rank in certain aspects like among the absolute like top in the world, like that is to me interesting for sure. Did I plan it? Well, I did select the co-founders, a little later on. Like at first, it was pretty much just me trying to like make some money. Martin actually joined very early on, and so when we became the co-founders, it was after we already worked together some time. So it was a little bit more proven, than just finding someone on the street.
I feel like, when you go the investment route, you have vesting. In our case, it was mostly about trying what it's like to work together. And like you met Martin at high school, I met Pavel at high school. We both, with Martin and Pavel went to the same college. And so I think that it's such a coincidence that we have managed to very naturally get together. And one other thing that is a bit of a bizarre to me is that we never really talked in depth in terms of like coming up with some like business plans or in detail discussing what would be our long-term strategy or where we would like to take it. Maybe we could touch a little bit how many times, and I know this is going to be a bit sensitive, so I hope that people that will be listening and watching, especially the ones that are on the team now or that were on the team in the past, will take it with a grain of salt. But how many moments were there when we either felt like we would rather go do something else or we were on the verge of not really knowing how to proceed forward? I can definitely recall quite some.
You mean like when you wanted to give up, or like what do you mean exactly?
I mean, there were moments where we wanted to pivot into something else, and
that's true.
You know that like throughout the years, it was never clear where we were headed. For a while, we were trying to pursue our own product, and then we went full speed to work for clients, and then we did these pivots probably 3 times back and forth, but it took us a little while to realize where the North Star was, and that to me is pretty interesting too.
Well, look, 100%. Sometimes you just have to start doing things like us, right? And then you figure out like what it is later. Sometimes, like you're asked like, hey, who are your customers and who do you work for? And like, I honestly, I think it's totally acceptable to say, I don't know yet. Like we just doing something. And then you're like, oh, this is actually really good for these companies, right? So even like, being focused on startups or being focused on corporations, those are the things that just like worried. But, the one thing that I'm really grateful for, well, first of all, the amount of like things we tried and failed, like it's insane. There's also a bunch of things that we didn't do. We wanted to, before Slack was really big, right? Like, we had this internal Slack, and a Slack competitor that we wanted to launch. Those are the things that I'm like, bummer, we should have. And we tried, but there was like we just didn't, get it off the ground. So I'm only sad about the ones that we didn't do, but the amount of things we did is insane. And you're right. Like there were times where we were so close to like parting ways, and like because not parting ways, but more like splitting the focus. Like you were supposed to be on full time on like one project of our own. Like I was supposed to be full time on another project. And I'm so glad that because the negotiations were so close and like
extremely close.
It was like one of them was blocked by their current CTO, and like he's like, no, I don't want to do that. So luckily that fell through. You were supposed to be on this digital, like you were supposed to be like on a different team as well. Like I don't even know why that fell through, but I'm really grateful for the fact that we didn't really separate it, like to different companies, and I'm so grateful for where we ended up. The journey was just awesome. Like honestly, the fact that we really, I don't recall like ever like having a meeting where we wouldn't be able to find like some kind of a agreement. Like I was looking forward to every single meeting. Sometimes things were not positive, but it was always like, it was like the things we were talking about were not like, hey, we're doing great. No, it was most of the time it was like, oh, oops, like we're running out of money. Like, oops, this is not good. But I was always looking forward to talking to you and Martin and Pavel. And it was just such a treat. And the fact that like we inherently trust each other, where we would sign any kind of paper without like really reading it, all of us, no matter who gives it to you from the four of us, that just shows me how much trust we were able to build like very quickly on.
And I couldn't agree more. And that's something that I think stays for a lifetime now. And although we have gone to different directions, I think that there will be definitely points in time where we'll be able to reconnect in certain initiatives. And I think we can only imagine how easy it will be for us to do so, because there is a proven track record that we can work together very seamlessly.
Oh, 100%. And we've been tested by so many situations where I remember like, Pavel like once asked me like, hey, this person says that like, you're approaching something without integrity. And I'd be like, all right, let's talk about it. And then we sit down, I tell him all the things that are happening, and he leaves the meeting. He's like, all right, all good. We're good. And I'm like, great. Moving on, So there were times, I guess the only thing I can recall is like we would have somebody on the team, and it happened to both you and me. We would have somebody on the team, and we would, the rest of us wouldn't really necessarily be happy with that person. And it took us in that CEO role, like, it would take us sometimes a little longer to realize that. And then we would just be like, hey, like, this person shouldn't really be here. But those are the only things where we were not on the same page for a little bit, and then we would very quickly sync up, because in the end we agreed on every single thing that we were doing, which I find like really amazing and really uplifting.
How many attempts of building some products on our own do you think that we have had in those 13 years?
Oh my God, like so many. It was this dating app that we were working on. It was really cool. It was basically like more gamified than Tinder at that time. Oh, we had some, we had like a Scrum meeting. We had this food delivery startup Order. We then successfully launched the LGBTQ dating apps. That's actually, a thing that was kind of really took off. But we had some API startups for real-time communication, right? Like there was just so many. The
multiple games.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Some of them were not doing
they still make money up until today.
Yeah. Look, like I'm grateful. Like the journey was insane. As I say, and like, for example, like when we were building Order, like, it was such a great experience, like being able to work with the CEO. I mean, the founder of Messenger, such a nice guy, and like he would invite us to his place. Like he would do like homemade alcohol there, and like it's just like those are the experiences like across the various different startups. Or like when we went to. There was one startup, I don't even know which one that was, but I remember you, Martin, and we signed up for some Google user testing bootcamp and went to San Francisco to spend like 3 weeks in that. You remember that?
If you talk more about that, I'll probably
recall. It was like a Google accelerator that we got into with one of the startups. Uh-huh. And then it was, then we all lived in San Francisco for a while. We went to a couple of the sessions. We didn't like it. So then we were just like, oh, fuck it. And we, but we hang out for like, 3 weeks. And and that's just the amount of like different events, like these hackathons we launched, right? I remember the one we did in San Francisco at the together, and like you and I were like standing there, and someone asked us because we were like doing CrossFit at that time, and someone is, so what is STRV? Is that a gym?
I remember that. It looked like we were the bouncers of the event.
Yeah, there was the time, and we were like really pushing CrossFit hardcore.
I'm really happy when people mistakenly think that STRV is either a gym or a fashion brand. These two are probably the two best compliments that I can receive for STRV.
Absolutely, yeah, I love that.
Well, I think if I now recall the projects that we have done that we wanted to pursue as our own products, I think that number would be probably close to 50.
Yeah, totally.
It is insane.
It is
like
insane.
We haven't even talked about those projects that we did as a little bit of a partnership, or like some sweat equity, etc. There were so many, so many, so many failed projects.
Yeah, but that's what makes you, right? Like that's like, as I say, like I never ever regret like us spending money on something and executing on something. The only ones I regret is the ones which we didn't execute or on, and we had these great ideas. And the reason is because you never know where we would get with that, right?
And like, I think if you would take the list of all the projects that we have completed, you would not be able to determine which ones are going to be successful and which ones not. And certainly some of them were or still are successful. So I think it's still very much worth it. I think that now, after a little bit of experience, I think we can decide better where to deploy the efforts. And I know that you are one of the most ambitious, not just crazy, as I mentioned in the beginning, but also ambitious people that I know that I have in my network. And I know that you always wanted to go after things and achieve things that were for a standard thinking person not achievable. So that, I think, helped me a lot to get the excitement of going after things. And oftentimes we were able to pull that off. So I think it also helped to stay motivated and stay grinding.
100%. I think our skill set was very complementary because I would be starting things, have the initial drive where you put in the consistency, but also the operational efficiency. I remember when you joined STRV, there was definitely so many hard decisions that I was kind of not able to make or do when it comes to cutting off some clients that were just not good for us. And you came in and you were like, hey, look, we need to do this and that. So, that kind of courage that you showed in those areas and your drive for optimizing businesses and running them well, it was also like, very inspiring and pushing me to think about business in a different perspective.
Looking at the entire history, what would you say, from your point of view, were the most critical moments to be able to get to, like, we have scaled the company to about 200 people, peak $20 million annual revenue. That's something. Most of the companies like STRV, most of the design engineering teams, they get to 20, they get to 50 maybe people, and then they either get bought out or that's basically the end of the line because it just becomes a management nightmare and they fall apart. What do you think, in your eyes, were the most critical moments for us to be able to power through that?
I think it was definitely the move to the US was extremely important. And then getting the first clients from Y Combinator, which is like, prestigious tech accelerator. That was probably very important. Just when we are speaking about like all the different efforts, we applied to Y Combinator 9 times that I know of. It might be 10. It was somewhere between 9 and 10, but I remember.
How many times have you gone to an interview?
So we have 9 applications, and we have, I think, 3 times being in an interview, where 2 times we were at the second round of interview. And it's like a very small, very few companies get to the second. So, I mean, like, most of them get rejected, small portion gets accepted, and then there is like a couple in between. And so twice we were those companies in between.
Would you still find it appealing to be part of YC now after, having quite an experience, or that's the story of the past?
That's the story of the past. The thing is that you could possibly, I don't know, I guess right now it probably would be a little easier to get in, but that's the reason why it would be easier is because we probably don't need it anymore as much. So right now I wouldn't be as excited about those times. But I remember the first time we got invited for an interview, it was like, whoa, I still remember that day when I was getting in a taxi because there was no Uber at that time. So I'm getting in a taxi in San Francisco. Oh my God, it's crazy. I feel old. And getting to that interview, and just it was a beautiful day, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the best day of my life, so excited.
You mentioned that basically the move to the US was one of the critical events in the company history, and I would definitely agree, although I was not the one influencing the decision. I was I would say I was the one contributing to its success, hopefully. But now you are, like you live full time in LA. I travel back and forth between the US and Prague. But I know that a lot of companies, not just from the Czech Republic or Europe, but from anywhere, would like to make it in the US. And for some reason, we have established a very strong presence and very strong network. About 75% of STRV's client base is from the US. What do you think are the essential things for that to succeed? Because I have seen very few companies to actually be able to pull that off. And I have seen a lot of companies that wanted to do something like that, but they were never able to make it happen.
I mean, the idea of moving to the US wasn't that impactful. What I was saying, what was impactful was getting the traction in the US market. And that's the part where you were there for already. Because it took a year to get the first client. So I would say the most important was, I think when you and I and Martin were in San Francisco, and I remember we were like close to running out of money, which happened so many times throughout the history. And then we had like this sprint, and our goal was to get like 5 clients within 3 weeks. And we did that. And those clients were real impactful. And I think that was probably the turning point when it comes to us being like a small group of college kids to becoming significantly impactful organization. When it comes to the overall success, like, look, it was a collection of effort, drive, consistency, grit. Like we worked hard. We weren't not always working smart, but we worked really hard. Like I remember skipping 2 nights a week on average, like just not sleeping 2 nights a week. I remember being like always online, like, both of us were like always available, always like there for clients, being in Slack, working multiple time zones, traveling all over the world. My wife, like, she described our vacations as epic hunt or crazy hunt for Wi-Fi, because of so we were not really vacationing. We were just searching for the next Wi-Fi spot so I could get some work done. So I really think it was. I would do it differently for sure. I'm by no means am I trying to say that you have to work hard in order to launch a startup. No, you have to work smart. So we were not that efficient, but it was a lot of time and effort we put into it.
I have a feeling that if you don't have the experience and you don't know how to do certain things, you can just match that with the level of effort that you have. And yes, you will make a couple of mistakes, but you will learn from them and you will power through. And as you progress throughout your life and career, hopefully you become a little smarter and you also build a little bit of leverage. And then if you can have a leverage, be smarter, then it no longer really is about your amount of time that you put into things, because you likely will be doing a lot of things correct versus I remember then that in the early days for me it was purely the effort. It was not definitely the experience. It was just trying things and then figuring out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I agree.
And I know that we called it back in the day throwing a strategic shit against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, I think in the US they call it the shotgun approach.
Yeah, we have adjusted that phrase a little bit.
Yeah, you know, there's many moments throughout the career that I recall. One of them was definitely when we decided to build the large office in Prague, and there was a bunch of memories that come to my mind connected to that.
Well, 9 years later, I'm sitting still in that office and very much enjoying it. And it was quite an insane decision for such a young company to do so big of an investment and to commit to something so heavy financially. But I think it helped us tremendously to set ourselves apart from other companies and basically enter the, I would say, top tier tech league in Prague, in the Czech Republic. Also, I feel like maybe Central Europe in general. It was a brave move. It was definitely influenced by being very ambitious, and I always say that we were a little too naive. And I think it's one of the stronger contributions to the path that we have had, because if we would not be naive, we would probably not do the decisions that we have done. But you can't be just naive and then make decisions that are silly and not follow through. As you mentioned, like we worked on it day in, day out for many, many years. And that, I think, pays off. Then, like, you make silly decisions, but you actually drive it to a finish line.
I would replace, with respect, I would replace the word naive with courageous. I think if we wanted to do a little bit more due diligence or or planning, like, we could definitely come to a conclusion that there is no data that's backing our decisions, and that it's like it's a very courageous decision. So it was. I would say it was intentionally ignoring some of the things that can go wrong, rather than not being aware of those things, right? But I remember, like, when we were leasing that, about to lease the office, which was in the end, it was the third largest real estate transaction in Czech Republic that year when it comes to leases. And I remember, like, you came to the...
And it was like, just to put it in a perspective, if I may, the other big leases were companies similar to like Microsoft and Oracle, etc. Right? So we were suddenly like, a bunch of college kids turned into a company that was suddenly part of one of the biggest transactions on the real estate market.
Yeah, I know, it was crazy. But I remember how that started is you came to Hall of Fame, which was this meeting room we had in the previous office. And you said, hey, so we have this lease ready. It's for about 250 people. And I said, oh, do you think it's going to be enough? Because we outgrew this current office very quickly. And you said, all right, I'll take a look into that. And then the next day you just came back and you said, all right, so I doubled it. And we got lease space for 500 people. I was like, okay.
Off we go. And the rest is history.
And there was literally like there was no like business plan. There was no like numbers we were crunching. This was the entire conversation that I just said that made us sign a lease for an office for 500 people. And I find that courageous, not naive, courageous.
Yeah, I mean, I like to use the word naive because I feel like there was a little bit of luck.
100%.
And it was, thinking back about it, it was very risky, very dangerous. But I also like the tone of the word courageous. And that's what I think happens if you get the right people together.
100%.
Are there any other moments that pop in your head when it comes to doing something crazy? Because I wanted this discussion to be the unfiltered truth about STRV, the darkest secrets of what we have gone through.
Well, a lot about our success was about mindset, and I remember the story about how we tried something difficult together. Those stories come to my head. So, well, first of them was when we decided to travel around the world and work out at every single Barry's bootcamp location. Right, that was definitely one of my favorite ways of spending time with you, because it was at the time when you were the CEO already, and that was accomplishing something extremely challenging, because it wasn't that easy to go into 50 Barry's bootcamps around the world, and like I had to fly to Dubai and Milan and Australia and Canada.
Yeah, what a pain to be able to fly to all of those wonderful places.
Well, no, that was nice, but we had to take 3 classes a day, like when we went to Miami and like being pretty much doing like anywhere from 1 to 3 classes a day of being on the road for like a week or a week and a half. Like that was pretty difficult.
It was intense.
So there was a lot of fun, but also a lot of pain, physical pain from that. So that was definitely one of my favorite things that showed that if you put your mind into something and like if you have a goal, even though if it's a silly and hard goal, you can accomplish that. And little did we know that little challenge that cost us let's say a month of time in total, but like allowed us to stay together, like would lead to us taking over the technology for Barry's Bootcamp and turning them into one of our clients, right? Still to this date, we are helping them, right?
That's right.
So that's definitely one of those things that stuck to my memory. Another one would be when we attempted to go to Ibiza.
That's more on a personal side.
It's not a personal side, but like I see a huge analogy with like personal life and business, right? And And this was when we were at a small airport at an EDM party in the Czech Republic, and we know that Martin Garrix was playing there, and he had his private jet at the airport. So yes, we were a little drunk, but honestly, it doesn't really change that much because we were still showing a great mindset.
We can say that now we both don't drink. A lot of things change in our lives, but that was a very wild night.
That was a wild night.
That did not end up in Ibiza after all.
It didn't, but what it showed me is, and like this was extremely important because we were not giving up until up until it would be it get to almost impossible, and we would have to make some people very, very. We would have to annoy some people really greatly, if we wanted to succeed in that mission. And we were, as we were at this small airport, and we realized Martin Garrix had his private jet, we were like, why don't we actually go from this airport to Ibiza? So I called my friend Philip, who is a pilot, and we were like, hey, can you pick us up here, right? And he's like,
just come pick us up, it's easy.
So he's like, well, I think I woke him up because it was like 2 a.m. and he's like, dude, I can't, there's like,
he was saying that there were no lights at the runway.
Yes, he said there was no lights at the airport, the runway. So we offered that we would like light it up with our phones, and he said that wouldn't really work. So he's like, I'm just going to bed. So I was like, all right, whatever. And then you found like tickets to Ibiza from, we were wanting to fly from Prague, but there was no ticket, so we had to go to Munich, right? So like 3-4 a.m., like we jump in a taxi and we go to Prague, where we change to Uber, and we go to Munich, and we're just so determined that we will go to Ibiza because that was the mission. And unfortunately, I forgot my ID in the first cab. And but we are like, we are not giving up. And I called the embassy in Germany if they can help me out. And the lady that picked up the phone, she wasn't really pleased with.
She was not happy.
She was not happy. It was like 7 a.m. Sunday, and she's like, "What's the emergency? This is my personal line." I'm like, I need to go to Ibiza. I don't have my ID, and she's like, "This is an emergency line. If you need to get issued like a temporary passport, you have to wait for the consular." And it's like, I was like, all right, I guess this is it, Lubo. We are not going to Ibiza, but it was a great experience. It was a great attempt. Like, we were not giving up, no matter how difficult the situation was getting. And yeah, we had Leberkäse at the airport, and then we went back.
Besides that being my longest Uber ride up until today, and I have taken some long Uber rides, but this was definitely the longest.
Was it 3 hours or 5 hours?
It's about 4 hours.
4 hours, yeah.
I think it was at night, and the driver was driving very, very fast, as far as I remember.
Right.
German Autobahn, right? But the funny thing was that even if we would have figured out the passport or ID situation, what we have realized later, that throughout the way to Munich, I managed to book tickets to Ibiza, but I booked it for a wrong day. So there were multiple obstacles, and we did not make it happen, but it was one of the wilder nights that I remember for sure.
Yeah, and as silly as it might look, I honestly really do value the perseverance and the focus we gave that mission, even though it was a stupid mission, because that analogy is like really transferable to business, except usually the goals are not as stupid.
Yeah, I mean, if you can have such a perseverance when you are actually trying to go after something that makes a little bit more sense, then I think that you are on the right path.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you think it was the smartest idea to install a jacuzzi at our terrace when we were building out the office?
Look, if there wasn't for the focus on the United States market, I would say yes. Over here, people are not as used to partying on the rooftop and everyone jumping in a jacuzzi. So I think there was a little bit of a cultural issue. But I at the same time, I think it really helped us build a reputation, because at that time we were known as the tech company who has, that has the jacuzzi on their rooftop, right? We built like this really nice New York style bar and the jacuzzi next to it, and many legendary parties. And to this date, I'm meeting people who are like, "Oh yeah, I've been to a party." Or pretty much everyone's been to a party. Like, I don't think there's a single young professional in Prague that hasn't been to a party at one of our offices, right? So I think it was good for that time. But the same way you're saying we are no longer drinking alcohol, we no longer put jacuzzis, next to a bar of our companies. So.
Yeah, I would say that the people that were at those parties are the true OGs, because they have seen what STRV used to be in its early days and early form. And it's like every company and every organization and every human being evolve. We have also evolved, and I do think that people of STRV still like to party. The parties are a little different than what they used to be. When I remember one of the first offices that we have ever had at the Wenceslav Square in Prague, overlooking the whole square. That was the party spot. That was where I think the biggest parties actually started. And when we were ordering bottles of Captain Morgan for the party, and it was like 1.5 liters of alcohol per head, and we still were able to finish it before midnight. I think it's very clear why both of us don't drink anymore. I think that there is a strong reason to it, and I think it's amazing that we both through different experiences in life figured out the path to actually not drink, because I think like it will probably not be long-term sustainable in in a form that we were doing it. But what do I say? It was great memories, and I think it to some extent helped us to build some sort of culture at that moment.
Yeah, 100%. Like there was many times, many good memories with that. I remember like how we had a party where we gamified drinking, and basically there was a projector that we had. It was showing how many drinks you had, so people were like encouraged to drink more. And the winners, I remember that one of the winners was throwing up on the balcony and on the terrace, and the other was throwing up on the other part of the terrace. So that was a fun party. I also remember when the police came to one of the parties, and they were pretty chill. They just, wanted to hang out and chat. But one of the girls was like, "Oh, the strippers are here." And they started like taking their caps and stuff like that. So it was fun. It was fun. It was good time.
They were chill. They were very chill. But it was so funny.
Yeah, I think they came because someone was like throwing some stuff from the terrace down there, and so I think they wanted to ask what that was about.
I have no clue who that was.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Crazy times.
I mean it's good to talk the funny stuff, and there has been a lot, but maybe to get a little bit more serious for a little bit. What do you think were some of our smartest moves over the years of what we have done together?
Okay, so let me say a couple, but then I want to hear a couple from you as well. So I would say definitely. Well, getting that big office in Prague, that was one. Then doing this Silicon Valley Insights events when we were like bringing like influential people from the US to Prague. Then investing in relationship with some of the good brands like Tinder, when we invested in building their some of their apps, and then we came to their office and showed them, hey, this is what we are capable of doing, and they were like, this is awesome, where do we sign, right? So doing things in like a little bit unconventional way, that definitely helped us to establish in the US market. So those are the couple that come to mind. What are your thoughts?
I think that like the fact is that up until probably 3-4 years ago, we have not really taken any money out of the company in a larger volume, and I think that was one of the smartest moves, because we could have easily made profit and distribute dividends and so on, but we basically reinvested every single thing that we have had besides our salaries. And I remember that there were even times, you have probably experienced it more than I did, but there were times where we were not paying ourselves, or we just waived some of the salaries for a while. But we reinvested everything into the company, and we placed bets. We placed bets on various projects. We placed bets on certain clients or their initiatives in a way that we would maybe build out a design concept, or build out, in certain cases, significant portions of the project. And it's very common for an established company to do a bit of work for free as a showcase, but it's extremely difficult for a smaller company to be able to finance that. And we have managed to finance so much. We have managed to finance so many failed projects and so many client projects that never got paid. But I would say that if we would not have done so, we would not be where we are today. And, if we would be purely operating the company based on the book, it would not work, because based on the book, we would not lease the office. We would not make these bets. We would not go and travel the world with Barry's World Tour and spend tens of thousands of dollars, an insane amount of time. We would not go and build like more or less the entire Apple TV app for Tinder and showcase it to them before they even committed. And there were many other examples like that. And I think the overarching theme of it is not going by the book. Because if you go by the book, then that's pretty much what the majority of the market does. And I think it's a lot harder when you are a bigger organization, because you need certain level of stability. But even so, when you think, for example, how Elon Musk approaches his companies, it's exactly that. It's not going by the book and not doing what everyone else is doing, and it might even work for bigger companies too. But I think it played a huge role in our path.
Yeah, it did. We definitely did a lot of out of the box thinking. So outside of the box, yeah, right. Like that. That was a really big part of it. Doing so many auxiliary things to just not just the core business, but so many things around the core business. Like when I mentioned bringing the top speakers from Silicon Valley to Prague, and then inviting engineers and designers to these community events, bridging the gap between those two markets. That was something that really helped us to build a brand.
I have to say that I really enjoy this moment when we are talking post-transaction. I have acquired 100% stake in STRV a few weeks ago, and I hear from people all around basically how it's possible that we have gone through this whole journey of, we talked about it, me starting as a project manager, and over the years getting to a point that I own the entire company. And we are now even talking about it here on the podcast. And I think it has only made our relationship stronger, if anything, because we have yet another thing that we have gone through together. And very similarly with Martin and Pavel, our other two co-founders, because I think that they see it exactly the same way. And I'm still trying to grasp to figure out how is that possible? How it's a very uncommon thing. And I still wonder what was the secret sauce that we have managed to make it happen.
Well, you want me to speak to how it's possible that you came from a project manager to 100%?
Mostly, I was. You can definitely cover that too. Mostly, I was asking about us going through so many transactions, us playing a game that has very high stakes financially, but keeping it still extremely low key, which I think is what we exactly did and what you were describing with basically, us having the level of trust that we signed the paperwork between each other without even looking at it. And I don't think it's without even looking at it, but it does not go through such a thorough review as it would go through normally. The share purchase agreement had exactly one page, I believe. It was one of the simplest documents that I have ever seen. And I think that just pictures the reality.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let me talk about both. Well, how come you get to 100% from being a project manager? Well, first of all, when you joined, I immediately knew that you had a lot of value for the company, and you prove it like very quickly. You became one of the most important people on the business side, like in the first, I don't know, month or so, right? Like there wasn't that many, but and then I wanted to incentivize you to stay with the company, and I believe I offered you a little piece of equity, and then you wanted to offer the company more value, and you asked for more. I remember that it was in world-class gym in I think in Slovanský dům or Venceslavský. I think Slovanský somewhere there. It was in that gym, and you asked like, "Hey, I would like to get more. equity, I can bring more value. And I was like, okay, let me think about it. I think there was like some kind of a period of vesting. So you didn't get the equity at the right at the moment, and you ended up as the initial co-founder, you ended up at 18%. And then I remember I was in Venice when you called me. And I remember those moments because those moments are significantly, emotionally, are significant. I'm not saying it was a bad or good experience. It was an emotional, significant experience. It was basically just like, oh, and you called me and you said that you would like to have a majority of the company, and I was like, okay, all right, well, whatever is something that makes you happy, I'm definitely willing to entertain. And then you made me an offer, and I accepted. How simple is that, right? The first transaction took a little longer, but then the second time, when you called me and said, "Hey, I would like to make you another offer and buy the rest of the company."
Now I won the whole thing.
I was running at here in Torrance. I went for a run, and I stopped, and I was like, all right, well, look, I'm happy to consider whatever you think might help you feel better. And I always wanted to do what's the best for you, for everybody, like everybody who works for me. My goal is always I wanna make them happy, because I know that when they are happy, when people are happy around you, they can produce so much value for the company, which in the end I benefit from as well, right? So throughout all these transactions, like I always had your interest in mind, and then just checked and just made sure that it was somehow aligned with what I needed at that time. And the first transaction allowed me to buy a house, which I'm in right now. So thank you. And the second transaction allowed me to invest in Mind Zero, which I'm running right now. So thank you again. So I appreciate doing business with you.
Oh, it's good that I also get to hear it, how it was perceived from the other side, because I was on one side of the line, and you are now describing the other side of the line. So it's a very interesting perspective for me still.
And I think it made really sense, because you were the only one running the business at that moment, and because it's emotionally extremely it's pretty hard to run STRV, because you have to manage the engineering side, you have to manage the client side, and emotionally it's very very exhausting, or could be very difficult at times. And that's why I understand that it's important to feel like at least when you go through this hell, sometimes you are an owner of that. So to me, those times, every time when you ask me, it made sense. But now I'd ask the question, I'd turn that to you and would say, what made you to actually want to purchase first the majority of the company and then subsequently the entire company?
Well, I think the first part was when I realized how big of a grind it is, and what role I play in the success of it, I guess, because you, Martin, and Pavel were focusing on other things when the pandemic hit, and I had to. I went through one of the toughest times, business-wise, as well as personally. It was the most groundbreaking year for me, because I lost half of the revenue from basically 1 week to another, and I had to figure out how to go about that. And I also that year, coincidentally, was diagnosed with a type 1 diabetes, which made me reconsider a lot of things health-wise in my life. But ultimately, I came out of this as a winner, having one of the best years in the company history, followed by yet another very successful year. And going through those challenges, I think it gave me a feeling that if I am putting so much, I would like to have a bigger leverage to potentially, well, as you mentioned, right? You managed to buy a house and with the first transaction, and make a significant investment into MindZero with the second transaction. And as I was talking about joining what I would consider bigger or higher league, when I was talking about the steps when we actually leased this big office, I think this is very similar. This first transaction made me to join a bigger league when it comes to not being a minority owner, but being a person that is actually running the show. And I put a lot of my skin in the game. And then I think that the second transaction was just a natural progression of me getting the grasp of things, me being able to pay back a big portion of the loan that I took for the first transaction, and me still feeling that it's a grind in the kind of business that we do, because it's mostly work for clients. It's a lot less of doing crazy investments and crazy own products as we have used to. But I think we have both become a little smarter and a little bit more experienced. So it's not that I wouldn't like to be building more products of our own, but I just would like to do it in more of a smarter fashion. But it was just a natural progression of me being more confident that I can pull it off myself. And on the flip side, knowing that if I own the entire company and the company does well, then I have a lot bigger room to be able to share with the team that is actually on board with me, right? So, because if I own half of the company and the company is very successful, and I pay out dividends, I'm paying out dividends to people that are not involved, versus if I own 100% and I'm able to take some portion of the profits and share it with the people that are in the trenches with me, day in, day out. I think it creates an even stronger bond, and not that I would not be, enjoying having you, Martin, and Pavel as partners, but this is something that really motivated me to take on the risk and be able to do that, because one of the strongest, most emotional moments that I have ever had in my entire career was when we had our best year ever. We have made nearly $4 million of profit, and we have decided, heavily influenced by me, but approved by anyone else on the co-founding team, to take $1 million and distribute it to the team without basically any sort of promise on or commitment beforehand. I remember that I nearly cried when I was announcing it at the all hands. And it was a big moment for me. And I think it also might speak a little bit about how I approach running a business. And I think it also explains a little bit more why the four of us were able to handle things of high stakes together so well, because we never put our profits on the top of the pyramid. And if anything, we wanted to make sure that we operate as a team first.
Well, that's definitely very nice of you to do that, to take $1 million and without any commitments, as distributed in between the team.
Well, if you look at it from a different perspective, it's not anything uncommon. A lot of companies do that. A lot of companies do something like 13th salary, etc. And it's not life-changing money by any means, but it was unexpected,
right?
And it was significant amounts, and that's what made me so happy to be able to do so. And I hope to be able to get back to it. And I think now with the second transaction coming in, it's also a lot easier for me because I have a bigger pool to draw from. So that's been my motivation to go above and beyond.
Well, it's a great motivation, and I'm glad it worked out. It worked out for all of us. So thank you for leading this transaction, being the one who suggested it and who made it happen. So,
well, I will be thankful to you and Martin and Pavel, but you primarily, because in fact I look at it as you. And now I will, we can actually say it to each other now, because if anyone has played an extremely important role in making Lubo Smith, besides my parents, I think that you are the number one figure in that story, because you gave me the opportunity to be able to pull off something like starting with zero and acquiring 100% of a company of about 200 people, which I find still a little bizarre that I have managed to go through the entire story and still keep everyone as friends. But that's something that I will always be very thankful for.
Well, you're definitely welcome. I didn't do that as a charitable contribution to the world or to you. I did that because I knew that you can do great things for the company, great things for the world sometimes, and also great things for me and my family. Thank you for taking the company to a point where you could pay out a significant amount of money, so I could be living in a house where I'm living right now, and running the startups I want to be running right now. So thank you for that. You definitely, and this is not the end, right? Like we also, it's not the last. It's not company.
The end at all.
It's not the last. It's not the only company that we had together. So there's still something that connects us, and also, what I would say is, yes, I had a significant, role in your life because we happened to work together. But you would be successful no matter what. Like no matter what you would do, what you would do, you would be successful. I don't really believe that as a leader you can turn B players into A players, or shitty people into great people. No, what you can do is you can take the people who are motivated, self-motivated, have a great mindset, and you can give them an opportunity to do it on your platform or with your company. So I just gave you that opportunity, and you took it, and you worked really hard, but it was all you. And if that wasn't STRV, you would do some other amazing things. So I'm glad we got connected. We went through this journey. I, would not hesitate to jump again on any kind of adventure. with you, Martin and Pavel. It would be awesome. Maybe it will happen at some point of our life. Right now, we are still connected. Like, you are an investor at Mind Zero. We're both investors in Scavengerland, right? That Pavel and Martin are working on. We still have one more company that we have together. So there's still ties, and I'm sure
there's quite a bit. There's quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure that down the line there could be opportunities how we get reconnected again.
Yeah. Now, being on the flip side of that, something that I wanted to do to tie this discussion to an end is: do you have any wishes, expectations, or anything like that in terms of what you would love to see or what you wouldn't like to see happen with STRV, with the company that you have spent so much time on into the future?
That's a great question. I appreciate that. Look, you proved that the culture that you are building not only is up to my expectations and the same culture that I would be creating, but you improved the culture. Like, there were things like being extremely transparent when it comes to reporting everything. Like, the information you share with people, like, you pretty much share absolutely everything. The only thing that we don't share is probably like the exact salary that people have, but like, it's very public, like almost like what that range is. So, it's insane, the amount of transparency, the way how you share your success with people financially or, in other ways. So culture wise, you're building an amazing organization. Every time when I go back, and because you were so generous and gave me access, I could keep access to my office. To your office now, which is awesome. And Mind Zero has a little tiny team that will be based there as well. So that's awesome, and it makes me really happy to be surrounded by such great people. So you already have proven that you're doing that. So I would love to see this to continue, but I'm sure it will, because you just have the positive values, the values that I appreciate and I honor. You have them, you live them. And I would love for you to do really, really well, because the one thing that I know is it's really, really good for you to have friends who are very successful, because once you have successful friends, then they can
guess
connect
what
you
happens.
with things, they can invest in things. So I really would love for you to be one of my most successful friends. I do have a lot of successful friends, so it's not going to be super easy, but
not easy at all. I know your friends, and I know that there's a long way to go.
Yeah, but so keep working that ladder and be one of my most successful friends. That's the other things I'm already sure of. So that would be my ask. Yeah, and with your success, it's going to be success for everyone on the team, and that would make me really happy if I would see that you guys are all thriving, making epic progress, new opportunities, new talent. Whenever I talk to somebody and they tell me, "Oh, I worked this TRV," or it was great, people are always loving the culture, unless they were not good performers and they were eliminated. Then they usually have a victim mindset, and they say that it was our fault or something. But most of the people that go through, they have a great experience, and that's like one of the most rewarding thing that a founder of a company that he no longer owns can hear. So thank you for keeping that up. That's my only wish.
All right, I will. Thank you so much. And I wanted to just say that I think that I have realized that some of the things that we have been saying since the very beginning are still true until today. And one of the things that we did with hiring was that we wanted to have people on the team that we would genuinely enjoy spending time with. And we applied that to hiring for the team, of course, but I think is even more important when you want to do a business with someone, because you will go through so many obstacles. You will go through so many challenging situations. And if you have people that share common values, and ideally they share values with you, but they have a little different mentality, and you complement each other, I think that's a very magical combination. And if I go that route ever again, this is something that I will be looking for. I don't want to be doing business or partnering up with someone who does not have some common values with me. It doesn't have to line up 100%, but the more it lines up, I think the more successful it can be.
And speaking of values, I am honored that you are the first guest on my value-driven podcast, where we're gonna dive into values deeper.
Yeah. Well, so many more podcasts with you later down the road. Today, we had a chance to nicely cover our journey with STRV, and I very much appreciate you setting up your amazing studio and joining me to talk it through. For me, it was a nice, I would say, finish of one chapter, but we have so much more that we could talk about. Going forward, I would love to hear how Mind Zero is doing and what are the big plans. And I know that you have an extreme ambition to grow as fast as possible and really dominate the space. And we haven't been able to touch it throughout this conversation for even a little bit, as well as many other aspects of your life that are very interesting. So I am pretty sure that there will be many more discussions going forward. And I wanted to thank you so much for the chat today.
Thank you, Lubo, for being my co-founder. Thank you. I don't think there's a better person or anyone else that I would rather see acquiring 100% shares of a company that I started back in high school when I was 17. So thank you for taking it to where it is, and thank you for taking it to heights that I couldn't, and taking it to the heights that I can't even imagine right now. I can't wait to see that.
Well, this finish of the podcast episode is, I would say, a little sentimental, but yeah, it was a great discussion. It was a great journey together with you, David, and I'm looking forward to a lot more things that we'll be able to do together. And thank you so much for joining me for the show.
All right, thank you for having me here, Lubo.